It's Jeff and Jim. Together, we're going to bring some smiles and things to think about into your life. Right?
We always do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to talk about prayer. Now, prayer is important in churches and synagogues, right? Whenever you grow up, of course, in whatever you grow up in, that's what your version of your reality of prayer is. And obviously, if you're a little kid and you look around you and everyone else is doing it, and you just grow up and do what they were doing. I grew up in a Protestant church in the South, as you may recognize
New Jersey.
And our prayers were primarily what we would call today petitionary prayers. We would thank God for things, but you would always hear requests. This is what we want. We're asking God to do, and all that kind of stuff. They were individual. People would be called upon to pray in the service, or in the Sunday school class, or wherever you were, and one individual would stand up and speak from the heart, usually, and do their best. There was a ritual form involved, even though they were individual. Everybody did the same thing, basically. Add a little twist to it, but it's the same thing. And again, prayer was a big thing when things were going wrong. That's when people get serious about praying. And those are really petitionary prayers.
See, but the point is, prayer should be something when things are going right.
Well,
God doesn't hear from people when things are going right, only when things are going wrong.
Well, but see, that may be over in yours, but in mine, which is the way we did it. Now, there were some very good people in there that were really keen on thanking God for things, and it brings some balance to the rest of us. But that was prayer to me. I mean, that was what it was all about. That's what I grew up with. Whenever I started studying, and again, I'm probably a Protestant, one of the many Protestant churches that are around. We did not do congregational prayers. The closest thing we ever did to a congregational prayer would be the Lord's Prayer, or reading Psalm 23. And that was about it.
So you didn't have like the Shema and V'ahavta?
No, we didn't do that stuff.
Okay. No, but I mean, it's really, there were not really,
But if I had belonged to a Catholic church, an Episcopalian church, they have a lot of congregational, have their own prayer books.
Right.
But we didn't have prayer books. We only had the Bible.
A hymnal. Right?
We had a hymnal, sure. Right. But that was just a hymnal. The holy thing here is this Bible.
Okay.
So that's what it amounted to. Then when I started learning about Judaism, and we'd go over to your synagogue, and they would hand me
Siddur.
Yeah.
Same word as Seder, order.
And so and you're sitting there praying a prayer with everybody else. At first, for coming from a mind that's used to individuality, that seemed really strange. Everybody's saying the same thing, but they weren't saying it for the same reasons we were praying over in my church.
So there wouldn't be like responsive reading.
No, okay. Not very often. So anyway, that's where I came from. Tell us a little bit about what prayer means from the Jewish perspective.
I mean, it's a lot of things. Most prayer will come from. It all depends. So you have the Israelite section and then the rabbinic section, because a lot of times we don't know. We have the instructions about what the priest was supposed to do, but they really rarely ever say anything that was said when they were doing it. We know that people heard the Psalms sung, with timbrels and lutes and all the Psalms were sung by the Levite choir. And then, for us, one of the most important prayers is the Shema, V'ahavta. That's about as close to doctrinal as we get. But these are also, things from Deuteronomy. They're directly from the Bible. You get, once you get into the rabbinic period, you start having brachot, which are blessings, and then, prayers that they say that were created to go along with the rituals that we do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you know, and those are congregational. There are also individual things when you know, when you pray. There's praying with everybody as a kahal, as a community, but there's also, you know, individual prayers. You know, we petition God as well. But to your point, as you had written here, God is not your cosmic bellboy or your fairy godmother there to grant your wishes. Okay, I just read something that was very important, that you know, this little thing that said, God doesn't give us stuff to handle. God is there to help us handle what we are given. It's a totally different mindset than, hi, my transmission's not working, would you please make it work? It's, you know, call AMCO, you know, call a transmission place. So it's a different thing.
Don't you go over some of these things, these topics we talked about earlier, and you know, the thing about that really is important from the Real Yeshua project that I'm working on in a series on the Lord's Prayer is that prayer in Judaism serves as an educational thing, not simply a petitionary thing.
Right. So in the first century in Galilee and Judea, most Jews understood Hebrew and Aramaic. Very important. If you can't read Hebrew and Aramaic, you have to depend upon somebody else's translation. Very important. They participated in the Shabbat and the synagogue services as a normal part of life. So the Torah was read publicly. This became something, even when the temple was Second Temple was up, they would have public readings, whereas some traditions, the holy text would be reserved just for the elite. Mm-hmm. This is read publicly Mondays and Thursdays, which were market days, and of course on Shabbat. Many participated in the temple rituals at least annually, because there are 3 pilgrimage festivals, Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot, where if you were in the land, or if you could travel from outside the land to Jerusalem, to the temple, you would see the sacrifices being done. Right? On Shabbat and holidays and holy days, they prayed congregational prayers, which most members knew from memory. These are things that you would hear growing up. That's how I learned what the service was about, because I would accompany my father every other Shabbat, you know, and do junior congregation and sit in the big service and listen to the melodies and stuff. That's how I learned. Shabbat services included public readings, as I said, from the Torah and other scriptures, and sermons by well-known teachers and community leaders. That is the educational thing. Okay, we just read this. Why is it important to me? What is it going to teach me? Today, the prayer book, Siddur, as I said, it's from the same word, Seder. An order plays a central role in the synagogue services. The earliest known Siddur comes from the 9th century of our era. So, but before that, even in the 1st and 2nd centuries and beforehand, they were also putting together in that Mishnaic period, 200 before 0 to 200 after Jesus' birth. That 400-year period was, a very important period, because they were putting together prayers that would appear later on. There were a few Siddurim that were around in the very beginning.
And some of those earliest prayers in the prayer books come from that period.
Right.
Yeah, so
right.
Anyway, that kind of gives you the layout for some of the differences between how we pray and why we pray. In the next video, we're going to talk about what prayer really is from a Jewish perspective and what it's not. And I think you're going to find that one very interesting. So if you would just check back and hear the second video on prayer. Thank you.